a very successful businessman who was walking through security in the airport, trying to get to his gate. Before he did that, he had to go and check in, a little kiosk, punch in all your information, gives you a boarding pass. And he didn't want to wait in the line because he was in a rush. He was running behind. Big, important business meeting on the other side of the country. He's got to catch his plane. So he goes up to the counter and says, hi, excuse me. Need you to give me my tickets ASAP, pronto, so I can get through security, get to my plane, important business trip. Attendant on the other side of the counter says, okay, sir, I understand you're in a rush. We're very busy today. A long line of people. Just take your place in line with the others, and we'll do the best we can. We'll get you through. I should probably add a parenthesis real quick. Admittedly, I'm totally ripping this off from Father Stephen's homily this morning. Just wanted to put that out there. All right, close parentheses. So the guy gets really fed up. He starts to pound his fist on the desk and he says, do you know who I am? I'm a CEO. I'm important. I do big things. I make big money. I got to get to this big business trip, or else give me the tickets. He says, sir, I'm sorry. We'll do the best we can. Please take your place in line. He says, do you know who I am? I fly on this airline all the time. I'm a triple platinum member, and I get tons of travel miles all piled up. You guys owe me. Do you know who I am? Attendant, very deftly, grabs her microphone and says, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have a man at the counter who doesn't know who he is. If he's a member of your party, if you would please kindly come and collect him, we'd be very appreciative. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good move, right? I really want that to happen someday so I can use a line like that. So, identity is something that's really important. It's important that we know who we are. And today, the topic of our gospel is about the identity of Jesus. I'd like to kind of frame this in the context of something that C.S. Lewis presented, good Christian author from England, lived in World War II era. And C.S. Lewis, he presented what's called a trilemma, right? Not a dilemma or a dilemma, but a trilemma, right? Dilemma would be some confusion between two things. I got to pick one of these. So he's adding a third thing. He calls it a trilemma. He says this: Jesus is either the Lord, or he's a liar, or he's a lunatic. What's he mean? He means there's a lot of people that are kind of like attracted to Jesus, but they're not really willing to follow him. They say things like, and you've probably heard this, I believe that Jesus was a prophet. He spoke the truth about a lot of things, and his teachings are very valuable. He's a good teacher, and we should hold to some of the things that he says. Okay? Good prophet, good teacher. Jesus was a great man, and he was a worker of many miracles. So apparently he's very important. So maybe we should check that out. Interesting. So here's what C.S. Lewis has to say about these objections to Christ being who he says he is, the Son of God. A couple things. If Jesus is just a good man and just a prophet and he's not the Son of God like he said he was, that makes him first a liar. And if he's a liar, then can we really trust the teachings that he's propagating? Probably not. If he's not really the Son of God like he said he was, there's another way that could happen. Maybe he's just crazy. Maybe he suffers from lunacy. He's a lunatic. And so, do we want to have mobs of people following after some lunatic? Is that going to lead the world in a good direction? Probably not. So it's impossible for us to stop at the saying of just saying, oh yeah, Jesus, he was a good guy. He was a good guy and very loving, but I don't really want to follow after him. Because he's a very polarizing person. You're either with him or you're not. There's no halfway with Jesus. And so today we even hear other objections. The apostles, they were very close to Jesus. They loved him a lot. They were convinced that he was God. Maybe they just made it all up after Jesus died. They started writing all these stories and stuff and started spreading these tales about Jesus. Maybe that's what's going on here. Well, when that kind of thing happens with religion, things like Jonestown happen and occults form and lots of people die and they fall apart pretty quick. We're still here. Even in the midst of all of the mess that we've created for ourselves. Even the church, being sometimes her own worst enemy, is still here. Even the Pharisees and the Sadducees, after the death of Christ, they weren't sure what to do with the apostles. They had seen other men rise up and claim to be the Messiah, and what did they do? Well, they killed them, just like they did Jesus. But then all of those followers of that would-be Messiah, they all scattered, and that was it. That was the end of the story. And that's why we don't know any of their names. But there's a reason why everyone remembers who Jesus was. Because he claimed to be the Messiah, and they killed him, just like they did the other claimants. There was something unique that happened. None of his followers disbanded. They may have been scattered for a moment, but they came back together. And at the moment of Pentecost, that birth of the church, and here we are, 2,000 years later. Even the Pharisees and the Sadducees of that time were saying, listen, if this is from God, it's going to stick around. We might as well just let it play out and see how it goes. If it's not from God, it's going to fall apart anyways. The point is, we don't have to look too far to see who Jesus really is, to see what Jesus really is. He is who he said he was. He asks the crowds today, who do the crowds say that I am? And the apostles go, well, maybe John the Baptist. Remember your friend who died? They cut off his head and we buried him. They think you might be him. And Jesus is like, okay. Interesting. All right, who else? Well, they think you might be Elijah. Remember that prophet who was really awesome in the Old Testament and he flew off into heaven at the end of his life? He never really died. They think that you might be Elijah, come back from heaven. And he's going, getting warmer. Who else do they say that I might be? John the Baptist, Elijah. Oh, others say that maybe you're one of the prophets who's risen from the dead. He's like, well, I am going to do that later, but not yet. But none of them are hitting on it. So what does he say? He comes right down to their level. Who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? And Peter nails it. He nails it. You're the Christ of God. And in other places, Peter's got some pretty good other confessions of faith like that. You're the Christ, the Son of the living God. You have the words of eternal life. To whom else shall we go? Peter nails it. Who do you say that I am? Peter gets it exactly right. And we see that played out throughout the Gospels too. I'm the bread of life. I am the gate. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The Father and I are one. As the Father is in me, so am I in the Father. He's spelling it out very clearly, especially to his Jewish audience who understands exactly what he's saying. There's no mincing of words here. He's saying, I am the only begotten Son of God. I am a divine person. I am the second person of the Blessed Trinity. It's kind of big stuff. This is the identity of Jesus. So, what does that mean for you and I? Let's look a little more deeply at who Jesus is. The first reading talks about Jesus as the pierced one. So we look at our crucifix and we see the soldier with the lance preparing to thrust it into his side. Behold the one whom you have pierced. Why is Jesus pierced? He fulfills the words of the psalmist who says, they will tear holes in my hands and in my feet. They tear that hole in his side and gush forth blood and water. Baptism, Eucharist, blood and water. This symbol of his great love for us, even from beyond death. He's pouring out these amazing, he's communicating his love to us. Just as God took a rib from the side of Adam and built up Eve, Adam's wife. So God takes something from Christ's side and builds up his new bride, the church. And we're still here after all these years. The pierced one, the one who has power to love you from beyond death. The one who can love you in a way that no one else can ever even hope to try to love you. This is the identity of Jesus, that he is pierced with love for you. He loves you so much that his heart is wounded with love for you. So what does that mean for you and I? It means that he's either a liar or a lunatic or a legend? No. He can't be any of those things. They don't even make sense. He can only be who he said he was. Or we should all just get up and go home now. If he really is the Lord, if he is love made flesh for us, in the same way that love will be made flesh on this altar, on the altar of this cross, today for us, and that will consume him into our very bodies, what does that mean for us? It means that we owe him everything. It means that we're called to take up our cross daily and to follow after him. What does it mean to pick up our cross and follow him daily? Does that mean we should all carry big wooden things across town every day? No, that's ridiculous. What it means is very simple. It means that in all of our sufferings of life, in all the inconveniences that come with being Catholic, in making sacrifices to have a living relationship with the living God, a real life of prayer, an ongoing dialogue with God, that we have to be able to detach from this world. We swim in this culture that's so godless. We breathe an air that is without morals. We're surrounded on every side by a culture that does not live by his designs, and that would encourage us to be tempted away and to live a half-hearted Christianity. To say, well, I'll just show up to church on Sundays and everything will be okay, and then when I go back to work or studies or my friends or my family or whatever, the rest of the week, I just go through the motions, do my thing, check my boxes. What it demands of us, the fact that Jesus is God, that God became man and lived among us because he loved us so much that he wanted to draw us to himself, that he wanted to be in perfect, infinite, everlasting communion of love with you. That means that we owe him our whole lives. So that in every single act of every single day, we live in a way that would be worthy of being called worship. That every thought, every word, every movement of our heart, we could bring here and say, Lord, this is my gift to you. You promised to come down and make yourself incarnate here again, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist. And so here I am, Lord, body, blood, my soul, and all of my humanity on this altar for you. Transform me like you transform this bread and wine into your body and blood. Transform me also. I put my life up here with these gifts. I owe you everything. I tell you what, if you offer him everything, you will not be disappointed. Pope Benedict came out on that balcony thing in St. Peter's Square the first day that he was elected Pope before St. Francis, and he said this to all the young people of the world. He said, the world will offer you all kinds of comforts and conveniences. And he says, brothers and sisters, you were not made for comfort or convenience. You were made for greatness. You were made for greatness. You weren't made for half-hearted Christianity. You weren't made to go through life like a routine and just check boxes and call yourself Catholic and think that that's okay. You're called to give your whole heart, your whole life, every fiber of your being to the Lord again, today, and every day. And that's where we're going to find our greatest happiness, because that's what we're made for. We're made for that kind of greatness. That's where we find our fulfillment. That's where we find our joy. That's where we find our hope.